Hey there, science fans! Today we're journeying to the majestic landscapes of Alaska, where a sleeping giant is showing signs of awakening. I'm talking about Mount Spurr, a volcano that's been slumbering for decades, but is now sending shivers down the spines of scientists. You see, Mount Spurr has been experiencing some unusual activity lately, and it's got everyone's attention. We're talking increased seismic activity, which means the ground around the volcano is shaking more than usual. And that's not all. Scientists have also detected elevated levels of volcanic gases, like sulfur dioxide seeping out from the mountain. These gases are like the volcano's breath, and they can tell us a lot about what's happening deep beneath the surface. Now, I know what you're thinking, is this thing gonna blow? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? While we can't predict eruptions with absolute certainty, these signs are certainly raising eyebrows in the scientific community. So, buckle up, because we're about to delve into the fiery world of volcanoes and explore what a potential eruption of Mount Spurr could mean for Alaska and beyond. Mount Spurr is showing signs of unrest. What exactly are scientists seeing? Earthquakes occur when tectonic plates slip, releasing energy. Volcanoes like Mount Spurr are hotspots where magma rises. This movement causes swarms of small earthquakes. Volcanic gases are another clue. As magma rises, it releases gases like soda fizzing. Elevated sulfur dioxide levels suggest magma is near the surface. Now, I know you're probably wondering, if scientists are seeing all these signs, can they tell us exactly when Mount Spurr will erupt? And that's the tricky part, my friends. Predicting volcanic eruptions is like trying to predict the weather. We can use all the data and models at our disposal, but there's always an element of uncertainty. Think of it this way. Volcanoes are like pressure cookers. As magma accumulates beneath the surface, the pressure builds and builds until, eventually, something's gotta give. But when that release will happen, and how explosive it will be, depends on a complex interplay of factors, including the magma's composition, temperature, gas content, and the structure of the volcano itself. Scientists use a variety of techniques to monitor volcanoes and assess the likelihood of an eruption, including seismic monitoring, tracking the frequency, magnitude, and location of earthquakes to understand magma movement, gas monitoring, measuring the composition and volume of volcanic gases to assess changes in magma activity, and ground deformation, using GPS and satellite data to detect subtle changes in the volcano's shape, which can indicate magma intrusion or withdrawal. By carefully analyzing all this data, scientists can get a better handle on what's happening beneath the volcano and issue warnings if an eruption seems imminent. However, it's important to remember that volcanoes are complex systems, and eruptions can occur with little or no warning. To understand the potential threat posed by Mount Spurr, it's helpful to look back at its rap sheet, so to speak. You see, Mount Spurr is no stranger to eruptions. In fact, it has a history of explosive outbursts that have blanketed the region in ash and disrupted air travel. One of the most notable eruptions in recent history occurred in 1992, when Mount Spurr roared back to life after nearly 4 decades of slumber. The eruption sent a massive plume of ash and gas high into the atmosphere, reaching altitudes of over 40,000 feet. The ash cloud drifted eastward, blanketing Anchorage, Alaska's largest city, in a layer of fine gray powder. The 1992 eruption serves as a stark reminder of the potential disruptive power of Mount Spurr. While the eruption itself caused no direct injuries or fatalities, it did result in widespread economic losses, particularly to the aviation industry. Airlines were forced to cancel or delay flights due to the ash cloud, and the cleanup effort was extensive. So, yeah, Mount Spurr has a bit of a temper, and its past eruptions underscore the importance of being prepared for the unexpected. Section 5. Anchorage on Edge, the potential impact zone. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the city in the shadow of the volcano Anchorage. As Alaska's largest city, home to nearly 300,000 people, Anchorage lies just 80 miles northeast of Mount Spurr, well within the potential impact zone of a major eruption. Remember that ash cloud from the 1992 eruption? Well, that wasn't just a minor inconvenience. Volcanic ash is a nasty business. It's made up of tiny, jagged particles of rock and glass that can wreak havoc on everything from car engines to human lungs. In a worst-case scenario, a major eruption of Mount Spurr could blanket Anchorage in a thick layer of ash, disrupting transportation, shutting down businesses, and posing significant health risks to residents. Ashfall can irritate the eyes and respiratory system, especially for people with pre-existing conditions like asthma. It can also contaminate water supplies, damage crops, and cause widespread power outages. But it's not just Anchorage that's at risk. Communities closer to the volcano, such as Tyonek and Squentna, could face even more immediate threats, including lahars. Lahars are fast-moving mud flows that occur when volcanic ash and debris mix with water, often from melting snow and ice. These destructive torrents can travel for miles, burying everything in their path. Section 6. Preparing for the plume ashfall and its dangers. So we've talked about the potential for ashfall, but what exactly are the dangers? Well, volcanic ash isn't like the soft, fluffy stuff you find in your fireplace. It's made up of tiny, jagged particles of rock and glass that can irritate your eyes, nose, and lungs. Think of it like breathing in tiny shards of glass, not exactly a picnic. For most healthy people, short-term exposure to ash is more of an annoyance than a serious health threat. But for people with respiratory problems like asthma or COPD, ashfall can trigger serious breathing difficulties. Infants, young children, and the elderly are also more vulnerable to the effects of ash. But it's not just your health you need to worry about. Ashfall can also play havoc with infrastructure. It can clog car engines, reduce visibility on roads, and contaminate water supplies. In the event of a major eruption, it's important to have a plan in place to protect yourself, your family, and your property. Section 7. Your emergency checklist, staying safe during an eruption. All right, science fans, now that we've covered the potential hazards, let's talk about how to stay safe during a volcanic eruption. First and foremost, don't panic. I know, easier said than done when you've got a volcano rumbling in your backyard. But remember, knowledge is power, and being prepared can make all the difference. Here's a handy checklist to help you get ready. Stay informed. Monitor local news and official alerts from organizations like the United States Geological Survey and the Alaska Volcano Observatory. They'll provide updates on volcanic activity and any potential hazards. Have an emergency kit. This should include essentials like water, non-perishable food, a first aid kit, dust masks, a battery-powered radio, flashlights, and extra batteries. Protect yourself from ashfall. If you're caught outdoors during ashfall, seek shelter indoors immediately. If you must go outside, wear a dust mask or cloth over your nose and mouth to protect your respiratory system. Secure your home. Close and seal all windows and doors to keep ash out. Cover any vents or openings with damp towels or cloths. Be prepared for power outages. Have a backup plan for lighting, heating, and cooking in case of a power outage. Remember, these are just basic guidelines. It's important to familiarize yourself with your community's specific evacuation plans and emergency procedures. Section 8. The long wait, monitoring, and uncertainty. So we've covered the signs, the risks, and the preparations. But what happens now? Well, the waiting game begins. Scientists continue to monitor Mount Spurr around the clock, using all the tools at their disposal to track its every rumble and burp. They're analyzing seismic data, gas emissions, and ground deformation, looking for any changes that might indicate an impending eruption. It's a bit like watching a pot of water on the stove. You know it's going to boil eventually, but you're not quite sure when. This period of uncertainty can be nerve-wracking, especially for those living in the shadow of the volcano. But it's important to remember that scientists are constantly learning more about volcanoes and improving their ability to forecast eruptions. The more data they collect, the better equipped they'll be to issue timely warnings and keep the public informed. In the meantime, it's crucial to stay vigilant, follow the guidance of local authorities, and be prepared for the unexpected. Section 9. Knowledge is power. Staying informed about Mount Spurr. Well, that's a wrap on our exploration of Mount Spurr, folks. We've covered a lot of ground, from the science behind volcanic eruptions to the very real risks they pose to nearby communities. But remember, knowledge is power, and staying informed is the best way to stay safe. Keep an eye on official sources of information, like the USGS and the AVO, for the latest updates on Mount Spurr's activity. Familiarize yourself with your community's emergency plans and be prepared to act quickly if necessary. And most importantly, don't let fear rule your life. While the threat of a volcanic eruption is real, It's important to remember that scientists are working tirelessly to monitor the situation and keep the public informed. By staying informed, being prepared, and using common sense, we can all weather the storm, even if it's a volcanic one. Stay curious, stay safe,